Welcome to the Doctors of Running podcast, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and science of running and the stuff that we put on our feet. I am here with Dr. Matthew Klein, and I'm Nathan Brown. I'll be hosting, and we are making up everybody at the round table today. It was going to be three of us until about 15 minutes ago. Dr. David Salas, he had some internet problems, and it just shut down, and his service provider is not sending internet to his house at this moment. So here you are, stuck with Matt and I, but we are going to stick to the plan for what we were going to do tonight. It will look a little bit different, and we will roll out some answers from David and Andrea over time to the topic that we are covering. The topic we're covering has to do with the fact that we are, as of today, it's January 2nd, we are halfway through 2024. And every year when we get halfway through, we love to go back and think through the shoes that came out so far in 2024 and talk about which ones are our favorites so far for this year. So today, Matt and I are going to go through ours. We'll get David and Andrea's opinions on their shoes to you in some way, shape, or form in the future, knowing that we are taking a little bit of a pivot today. But along those veins, I want to hear from you, and we want to hear your perspective. So the subjective of the day is, what has been your favorite shoe so far of 2024? And so what the categories that we are going to be covering today are your daily trainers, those shoes that are going to eat up most of your miles. We're going to talk about max stack shoes, some that like super trainers would fall into that realm as well. And then the third category that we are going to talk about are kind of the lightweight and performance trainers. So we got three categories we're going to cover, and then we'll go from there. But before we jump into the specific categories, I do want to revisit something that we talked about at a previous episode, Matt. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the definition of super trainers and what shoes count as super trainers and which ones don't. And one of the shoes we talked about being a super trainer was the Neo Vista from Mizuno. And if you've been tracking what's been going on here, Matt's jaw dropped to the floor when they were talking to Mizuno about the technical elements of that shoe development and what the midsole properties are. And in our initial conversation, Matt was pretty staunch on the fact that a super trainer needed to be of a certain stack height, over 40 millimeters, and it had to have a PIBA-based midsole. Then he's on the phone with Mizuno, and they're telling him that it's probably some sort of supercritical EVA. And there's an EVA-based midsole in the Neo Vista, and his jaw drops to the floor, and he's like, I need to rethink my life. Yep. Not that extreme, but rethink his considerations for what really constitutes a super trainer. So as you've thought about this, what do you think about now? Has it changed? Do you stick in the same category? What are your thoughts on super trainers at this point?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest that I'm pretty confused and trying to figure out how to define these, especially as we see things continue to evolve. Like, I mean, the Neo Vista still fits a lot of those categories, being the over 40 millimeters. There's a lot of foam underfoot. Regardless of whether it's EVA or PIBA, it's a very compliant and resilient foam underfoot. I'm getting close to 100 miles, so I'll have a 100-mile review soon, maybe even before this episode comes out. But very bouncy underfoot, very soft. A lot of those kind of super shoe-esque components. There's a fiberglass plate in there, but not all super trainers, I think, necessarily need it, just a stiffening agent. But I'm confused now because I was saying, like the Cloud Monster Hyper isn't one because it's not over 40 millimeters, but it's got a super foam in there. The New Balance SC Trainer version 2, even though it does technically have like that bouncy foam, a plate, it's not over 40. The Neo Vista made me kind of look at this and go, you know what? I think the differentiating factor that we're calling these things super trainers should be, yes, they have super shoe qualities in a shoe really meant for training. But then you start getting the challenge of like the new Saucony Triumph has full length super foam in it, like true like Power Run PB, but it doesn't have a plate. So like where is this? So I'm still trying to work through how to define these, but I think I'm defining these as it has all the components that we would normally associate with a super racing shoe, but it is meant for daily. It has more of that daily training component. Things are tuned more for that.
Yeah, but I think personally, I also think I land in a similar spot that I was at before, and I could be misquoting myself and misremembering how I spoke about this, but when we first start talking about what we say super shoes are, or advanced footwear technology within shoes, there's a pretty clear delineation for what that means. It actually means that the shoe provides improved running economy when you run in the shoe. And that, if we take it down to like a scientific level, if the shoe is able to provide improved running economy,
right,
for a majority of people, that's going to fall into the category of advanced footwear technology and super shoes because it actually provides some definable benefit. What I don't think exists publicly right now is what is that physiological benefit that super trainers are giving us? I think that super trainers potentially are a made up constructed idea that takes these components of maximalism and takes some fancy foams and throws them into a shoe that has more rubber on the outside and a thicker upper so that you can train in it more, but it doesn't necessarily have anything proven to have a certain physiological benefit. I think that that's a possibility, that it's kind of just this. I don't want to go so far to say it's just a marketing strategy, but I do think that I have the question is, what's the physiological benefit that we're getting? So I said publicly on purpose because we've had conversations with companies, one of them being a little bit more public, which was Saucony about the Kinvara Pro, where they compared the running economy of the Kinvara Pro at slower paces to their Endorphin Pro 3, I believe, at slower paces. And they showed the same running economy benefit as compared to their control shoe, which was their regular Kinvara, if I'm remembering correctly.
Team, I think it was
call us
running. Out. Yeah, no, I think it was, you're on the right track. I think it was at like recreational, like sub-maximal running paces. Easy paces, yes.
At easy paces.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, they're showing there is I think in their internal testing, and they said this on our podcast, that there was a 1% or so benefit from a running economy perspective at those easy paces. There's been other internal conversations regarding different types of benefits regarding the amount of fatigue someone goes through or the ability to recover quicker because you have less fatigue. But on a large scale, those things haven't been shown yet. So for me, if something's going to be called a super trainer, I want to know what that actual physiological benefit is. Once we know that there is an actual benefit to these things, then I'm ready to say they're actually valuable and worth like pursuing excellence within that, besides giving just a lovely running experience, because some of them are certainly fun to run in. So that's kind of where my brain falls with the whole super trainer thing. But from a foam perspective, I think the other thing I said is I don't necessarily care if it's specifically PIBA, but if it has similar compliance and resilience metrics, if you haven't already, you should go back and listen to Dr. Jeff Burns. He came on our podcast and talked about these concepts. That's where I think what matters more, because you could have a really wonderful supercritical EVA that has these compliance and resilience factors that might mirror some other PIBA based things, because there's PIBA that's pretty useless when it comes to performance, and there's PIBA that's really great when it comes to performance. So I think it's more about the properties than it is the specific resin that it's coming from, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I would definitely agree. And I think that's the big thing that I'm taking from this is that we now have to move away from being stuck on foams. Is that now we're getting enough to see, hey, there are some PIBA foams that are really not that great, and don't feel that again, that's just a word. Okay. That doesn't, that it's a reference to a chemical structure. But I think what's really important is talking about how, and this is going to be different for every single person. Like example, I know not necessarily a super trainer, but you and I had very different experiences with the Power and PB and the Triumph 22. I felt like it was firmer than I would have expected for that much foam. And you were like, this is the softest, I've loved like softest shoe kind of thing. So it's trying to define the combination of what are the foam characteristics underfoot, like resiliency and compliance, and then also how are you responding to it. So that's now things are more complicated. And that's, I guess, kind of where we should have expected things to go, is it's not just, oh, this is the only foam, but people are going to figure out how to continue to expand is not to like to have a pun there, but to expand these foams and evolve them. So it's not surprising that EVA is able to be utilized in this way. It's just a chemical property. It doesn't mean you can't do interesting things with it. And the other thing that you brought up is it's got to show some kind of benefit. And it's not just the foam, it's the interaction of all the materials together, which is what I pulled from the Mizuno stuff. I was like, yeah, how they designed their plate, where they let it bend, all this stuff was designed specifically to provide that experience with the foam. So it's back to how does the entire shoe work together, not just one piece.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for revisiting that. I thought it was fun because people have been all in good fun. I think we have a great relationship with the people who follow what we're doing.
Yeah.
All in good fun, poking at you, saying, Matt, what do you think now? What's this whole super trainer thing? So we had to revisit it.
It also helps my facial expressions during that podcast with Mizuno. It was just like, I don't hide things at all. Like, it's very, you can tell what's going on inside my head.
Totally. Okay. So we are going to jump into the actual topic for the day, which is our favorite shoes so far of 2024. And we're going to use the term favorite throughout this because it's our personal favorites, the things that we are loving to run in so far. So let's start in the daily trainer category. We're going to talk about up until the first half of 2024. What are your favorite daily trainers? Why don't you give us a couple, anywhere from 1 to 3 that you've been really enjoying?
So one of the top ones for me, as someone who needs some stability, has continued to be the Saucony Guide 17. I've got about 150 miles on my pair. I just really love how this feels, that it's still lighter. It's got all those great kind of guidance concepts. It took me a little bit to figure this shoe out, but once I did, I've really enjoyed how unobtrusive it is and has this nice, wide, stable base, kind of all the stuff that we've talked about from a stability as well as the stable neutral concept, although it is a stability shoe based on how things are going. May not be enough if you need kind of a higher archer posted shoe, but it's just been a really great shoe that's also been fairly durable, this is my left one at 150 miles, so it's doing pretty good, right? So durability is there, the lightweight, just feeling like that borderline lightweight trainer, but still a training shoe, a little higher stack. And a really great fit has been something that's definitely been on my feet quite a bit and something I've really, really, really enjoyed.
Awesome. What other ones you got?
Oh, do you want to just have me go through mine, or do you want to switch back?
Yeah, you go through yours.
All right. Yeah. So another surprise one, and I mean this in the most loving way possible. The New Balance 880 version 14 has been my favorite boring shoe of the year. And I mean that in the best way. It's not only, it's 8. This is now the lightest, I think. I think it beats the Cumulus 26. It's the lightest of the standard neutral daily trainers. New Balance dropped over 2 ounces off this shoe, and I've really enjoyed it. It is simple. It is a neutral shoe. The sidewalls are really good, so I've done really well. Midfoot doesn't narrow too much, but it's a more moderate stack height. I think they dropped. I might be wrong, but I think they dropped the stack height, right?
No,
they kept it the same.
They brought it up. Mm-hmm.
31.23. Right?
I think it may have changed based on where you were getting your numbers from.
Got it. Okay, that's right.
Pretty sure,
but it doesn't feel like the highest stack shoe. It's got some flexibility. It's much lighter, lower volume, so it feels like a borderline lightweight trainer now. Even though there's plenty of cushion, it still feels great walking in all day. I just really enjoy it. The heel kind of is a little stiff for me, but I'm just really impressed with what 8.7 ounces for men's size 9.
Okay.
Yep. It's light. I'm like, whoa, wow, okay. So I really enjoy this. It's not the most exciting shoe. It's not no crazy foam. It just feels very standard, but it's a good shoe to go, I'm going to put something on that I don't have to think about. And I really enjoyed it. So great job, New Balance. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Another, surprise one that I didn't expect to like, and I actually did not like at first, has been the Glycerin GTS from Brooks.
That's surprising.
Again, I did not like this the last version. I felt like the heel was clunky. It wasn't great. I took some time to let this break in. I think I've got 70 miles on this pair now, and it's broken in so nicely. There's a lot more room up top. The 10 milliliter drop has been great because I keep annoying my Achilles tendon just because I haven't been doing the stuff that I talk about on the podcast with rehab and I'm getting back on it. But it's just been a great shoe.
And you're not sleeping.
Yeah, not sleeping. I'm getting less than 7 hours of sleep every single night.
Super stressed with your dissertation.
Yeah, all that stuff. But it's been a really solid daily training shoe for just getting miles on when I want something really cushioned, but I don't want like a super trainer or something feeling like odd underfoot that I feel kind of weird in running in a different shoe afterwards. The Glycerin GTS has been a really great shoe. So good job, Brooks. I'm really impressed. I came around on this one.
That's great. Do you have any other ones? But are those your 3?
I think those are the big 3. We'll talk about some of the the max stack height stuff in just a second. But yeah, those are some big ones. Yeah.
Perfect.
What about you?
For mine, I'm going to be cheating a little bit because there really is only one shoe that falls into like the pure daily training category. And people can disagree with me later because I have a couple shoes that'll come out and be like, just put that in the daily training category. Fine. However, these are going to be the 3 that I'm going to talk about. The first 2 came out last year. And one of them I would put in the potentially boring shoe category and weighs the same as the New Balance shoe, and that's the Clifton 9. This is a shoe that I still love. This one was one of my favorites from last year, so I don't need to belabor it, but just a reminder, this shoe is still on the market and it's really solid, and it gets it can just pound miles and can pick up the pace a little bit. It feels nice and light. The little bit more energetic foam in comparison to previous Cliftons. I'm a big fan of the Clifton 9. The other one that, if people have listened to me enough, they know I love me a good Nova Blast. Nova Blast 4 is another one that I just have really enjoyed, and it's stayed consistent. Get a lot of miles on it. I've found that there's a lot of similarities between the 3 and the 4, maybe slightly more stable with a little bit firmer of a foam in the 4, but really like that. But the one shoe that is getting this category for me for 2024 that's come out this year is the Triumph 22. And this one could be put in another category. It could be put in kind of that max category because it has a lot of foam underneath, and it has been moved to their Power Run PB. But again, I just love the cushioning in this shoe. I typically don't like super soft shoes, but the way that this one is soft feels responsive to me. Even at like easy paces, I don't feel like I'm sinking into it. And I like the wide platform, but it has a really nice bevel, so it doesn't feel clunky, even though it's got a really wide heel. So I think that the width stabilizes the platform. And I think they just did a nice job putting the Power Run PB as a blend into this training shoe. And I have the most miles in this shoe of any shoe this year so far. So it had to make my list, and I'm kind of pulling it out for most of my stuff, especially knowing, again, if you followed, I'm still coming back from this foot thing. So I'm not pushing the pace a whole lot. And so it has fit the bill for most of the runs that I've done. So really it's the Triumph 22 for me. Let's go into the max stack category. What do you got for that?
I think one of the big ones that I think people are going to know right away has been the Neo Vista for me. Even though it messed with my brain about what the foam is, it's just been a super stack, super bouncy shoe. I'll do a 100-mile review of this really, really soon. I will say some of the crazy bounce of it has kind of tapered off, where it's still got a nice bouncy foam. It's great for long runs. It can still handle up-tempo stuff. But it's just been a really great thing to see from Mizuno to go, wow, you're actually making a soft shoe. And I mean that in the best way possible, because a lot of their stuff typically tends to be firm.
Totally.
And apparently we're going to see a lot more of this in their other models coming out. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. But this has been probably the max stack height shoe that's been on my feet the most in 2024 as I get close to 100 miles. Just great lockdown. Great, a little bit of rubbing on the toe, which I'll talk about, but like really great foam that challenged my brain.
Nice. Cool. I'll jump in with mine and then you can go back to yours, because I actually only have one for this category. Again, you could maybe put the Triumph here just because there is a lot of foam there. But the one I'm going to talk about is the Cloud Monster Hyper. Wow. I'm very hesitant to talk about this shoe as a favorite of 2024 because I don't think the value's there. So I have like 20 miles in this shoe at this point, and I enjoy running in it. I like picking up my effort just that little bit that I am doing. It feels responsive. It's a stable platform. I can run on our green circle crushed granite because it doesn't get stuck in any of the clouds. So like I'm a fan of this shoe and the overall feel of it. It's not super soft. It's a little bit firmer but springy in my opinion. When you just have a shoe that's over $200 that's meant for training, again, I just don't see the value there for it. But if I had to pick one for this category and if money weren't an issue, this would be a shoe that I enjoy being in. I was running in it this weekend with my friends. I'm like, so what do you think of that shoe that you're wearing? And it's funny. Like on the podcast, I talk about shoes and just like can ramble about shoes. When I'm with my friends talking about shoes, I'm pretty short. I'm like, oh, it's a shoe. It's okay. Like that's all I give them. And I don't know if I like subconsciously dissociate like my Doctors of Running passion for shoes when I'm going and running with my friends. I don't know if that's a thing, but
it's funny.
If it's about me when I'm with my running friends, I'm usually pretty short with my answers. So I don't think they listen to this podcast either. So they won't even hear me talking about this. But Cloud Monster Hyper, I enjoy I enjoy it as a higher stack max shoe, and it feels good on my foot as well. So that's always a win. What else do you got?
So this is going to be a little bit controversial. Let's see if I can grab this without looking. Let's see if I can pronounce this. By the way, beforehand, I recognize that I mispronounced everything. Please don't judge me. So the Cielo X1.
Great.
Not Cielo. I've really enjoyed this shoe, even though I grabbed the wrong one. Even though I ripped off the outsole piece, because where I land now is I land more in the midfoot right now, probably because I'm pushing a stroller, which has changed my mechanics, and I kind of catch that point and pull the stuff off. It's still, for most people, it's going to be really durable, but this has been a great shoe that's been able to handle so many things. Like I don't suggest training in true super racing shoes. This is really meant as a racer, but it's been really fun to get some long runs in it, some up tempo stuff. And I ran a 1745. I know I've said this a billion times, stroller 5K in this shoe. And so I think this is definitely, if you're looking for something that can handle training, racing, and you're okay being in a super shoe all the time, this actually might be a good option, although it is pretty pricey, especially for what I did to it. But that's my caveat with it.
Yeah. Great. Do you have any others, or are those the two that you really wanted to touch on?
I think those are the two really big ones in terms of like favorites that I've enjoyed.
Great. Well, let's move on to our final category. And this is kind of that lightweight and performance shoe category. Actually, we do have one other category after this, but that'll be a surprise, and we'll touch it at the end. But what are your top lightweight training shoes that you got so far?
Two of these I've gotten lots of miles on. So the first one is the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, which the 3 was okay. 4 really grew on me, and I really enjoyed it. Got 100 miles on it. For easy runs, long runs, especially some up-tempo stuff. It's just been a shoe I've been able to grab for a little bit of everything. So really enjoyed it. A little more, feels a little more aggressive than the last version, feels a little bit speedier while still being able to handle some of the same things while also having some stable neutral components, although it's a little softer, so not quite as much as the last version. But I've been really enjoying the Speed 4. It's the first of the 3 that I've been enjoying this year. What about you? Because you're holding a pair.
I'll piggyback on you. This would be my top one for this category. Of the shoes that I've ran in this year, this one has the second most miles in it, and I would agree. I've been able to put pretty much anything through this shoe. It's always been this kind of magic do-it-all shoe from version 1 all the way to now in version 4. I think what they did with version 4 is that they took version 3's kind of stability elements that they added with widening the plate all the way through the platform, and they took the speed elements and like streamlined elements of the first version and they put them together. And now you have version 4, which I think is, in my opinion, the best speed there's been for myself. It's my favorite because version 1, I couldn't handle a lot of miles because it was too unstable in the heel. Version 3, I was like, this is my favorite for sure because they widened that plate in the midfoot. I could run in it without getting irritation around my ankle. And now I get like the best of both worlds with the 4, and you can just run nice and slow. I would say the one thing about this shoe that's not perfect yet, believe it or not, no shoe's perfect, is there is some tapering on the lateral side that gets my little toe. And I had a roommate here. He was graduating, or he was in his final rotation for PT school. We house PT students when they need a place during their rotations. And he wore my pair through the same size. So he like just went through all of these shoes while he was living there. It was awesome. And he came back. He's like, yeah, my foot was numb, but it was fine. So he got a little bit numb in this shoe, but he's usually a 9.5. So he went down to a size 9. But he then relaced it and he did run in it multiple more times and ended up doing just fine. And so anyway, I just thought that was a funny story. And I would say if there one thing that they could dial in, it would be just opening up that forefoot a little bit, and then it would be great. But keep the dialed in nature of the rest of it, because it's a really great shoe to run in. One of those, what seems aggressive can also just take a recovery run and knock it out of the park. So crazy. What's your next one?
So this is a little bit stereotypical, but they've done a great job with it, has been the New Balance Rebel version 4. This has been an awesome shoe. We didn't get to test it till later. I'm very happy I got to test this. Again, more moderate stack height. They did. I know we just talked about being careful with how exactly we talk about foams, but the new Peebo based foam here definitely is more responsive. I've done some incredibly fast workouts in this shoe, even though there's no plate here. There's still some good flexibility. A little bit wider. I did not like version 3. I found it unstable. I found it not as fun as I was hoping. This really corrected all those things where it's a much wider platform, which have actually, because the wide midfoot has actually been great. I did 15 miles in this shoe and it felt totally fine. Didn't have any stability issues, but still the snappiness and wider fit. So it's been a really good shoe to both get workouts on when I want to try to avoid the plated shoes and just give my body a little bit break, but also just enough room to still feel really comfortable. And I'm really surprised. I've been seeing a lot of people here in Monrovia where I live wearing this casually. And I'm like, I'm not surprised. It's a pretty comfortable shoe. So also understand why it's popular. So that's been another one of mine.
That's great. My next one is the one where I said earlier that you could argue with me about categories. And this is the one that maybe you could just throw in the daily training category, but it is lighter because I think it's 7.4 ounces. And that's the Hoka Mach 6. And so this shoe, again, also, so it's kind of similar to yours. This is a non-plated shoe. They put a supercritical EVA in here for the first time. It's also the first time they gave it a rubber outsole. So this is, in my opinion, by far the best Mach that they have come out with. And I have enjoyed every Mach that I've tested, and I've tested all of them from version 3. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 I've been able to test. And I love the responsiveness of the new foam. I really love that they gave it a rubber outsole. It's got better grip and better durability. So I could get a lot of miles on here. This is my third highest mileage shoe this year behind the Triumph and the Speed 4. And so I expect to get more miles in this shoe. The one thing, it's funny, this is like a repeated theme, I guess, for me, but the one thing is that the volume of the forefoot in the Mach 6 is snug. And it's just, they could just open that up, like give it the forefoot of the Clifton 9, and I'd be a happy camper. And maybe they did it on purpose for that lightweight trainer feel. But I think that you could open that up, but keep the lockdown everywhere else, and it would be great. I also love the color that they sent us. I think it's really maybe boring, this kind of like off-white, but I think it's pretty clean. I have really enjoyed getting miles in on this shoe and expect to get a lot more. I was thankful. So when I first got it, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to run in this. It's too tight. But that was when it was super cold and I had to wear my thicker socks here in Wisconsin. Once I switched over to like the thinner summer socks, I've been fine. And the uppers kind of seem to relax and open up a little bit. So Mach 6, big fan of this shoe and expect to get more miles in it.
Totally agree with you on all the points there. For me, that the kind of narrower forefoot did kind of kill it a little bit, but it's still a shoe that like I was really happy with how fast I could take that shoe and how comfortable it felt to run easier in it. So it was really great.
Nice.
I'm going to go a little different direction. The Noosa Tri series has always been like supposed to be my favorite shoe because I'm the weirdo that likes running sockless and like trying things. I've actually never fully been able to do that 100% in any previous Noosa Tri. There's always been something that's caused some blistering or something. It's like, oh, almost. This finally got it. Every mile, I think I've got it like almost 15 miles in my pair now. Every mile has been without socks. I've had no issue. And I actually, the way it fits is actually, I can't wear socks with this or it's too tight. So going sockless actually makes it feel just right. I will also say the reason I really like this is because I feel like this is more of a successor to the Magic Speed 3 than the Magic Speed 4 is. Just because the specs, this is much lighter. Yeah, it's a little stiff. It's still got some flexibility, but there's Flight Foam Blast Plus in here. And it's got that same like really comfortable bounce to it that can also move really quick and just feels like a faster non-plated racing shoe. So I am really enjoying the Noosa Tri 16 and can say I think they finally got the sockless thing right, but I'll get further miles and figure that out fully.
Yeah, and it's funny because it comes in at $135, and that's pretty awesome for
it's a great deal.
The stage of the game that we're in. I usually don't use that word, but here we go. I hate the fact that 135 feels like a cheap running shoe, because that used to be the top end stuff. And so it's bothersome but you can get, this was going to be the other one I was going to talk about. And I only have a couple runs in on this shoe, so jury's out. So it's not officially making my list, but I did want to reference it because it's a shoe that comes in at, $135. It's got a foam that's pretty responsive. If you like a slightly stiffer rockered platform, this is one that's going to work for you. It's pretty basic from a construction standpoint, besides a little bit of rocker. You have to be able to handle a little bit of toe spring, but yeah, the Trinusa, it's a solid series. I'm glad they're continuing it, and I hope that they keep going and keep it in its simplicity, because I think that's what makes the Trinusa really, really appealing, is that it's simple and basic. And these two shoes, the Mach 6 and the Trinusa, are very similar, in my opinion, from a feel standpoint. The toe spring's a little less aggressive in the Mach 6, which is why I prefer it slightly to the Trinusa, but it's a good shoe. Especially now that it's moved to the same foam that's in the Nova Blast.
Right.
I'm a big fan. All right, so we have one more category that we wanted to hit before we start wrapping things up here, and that's looking backwards at shoes that are still on the market that maybe or are new as well, but we're trying to find that shoe that's a really great value for what you can get, especially relating to your own preferences, Matt. So for you, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first on this one?
So are we officially saying this is our either a budget or it's still available, like previous model that's still available on the market?
Either one. You can do either or both.
Okay. I'm gonna do two for this and one of each. So this shoe technically is still the current model. It's just from last year, but I think it's a great value and an awesome shoe that I've still loved. It's one of my favorite shoes of 2023, and that's the Asics GT 2012. I've still been running this thing. I love this thing. I'm really excited and also scared for the update to see what happens with that, because this is such a big change. But I love this shoe. The foam is great. I've done long runs, faster runs, easy runs, just something that I trust and grab every single time. Like, I'm beat up and I don't want to think about shoes I'm reviewing. I just want to grab something that I really love and enjoy. So even when the new version comes out, this shoe on sale is phenomenal. It's great. It's a lot of stuff that we've talked about. Again, newer age, where yes, it does feel like there's some good arch support, but they're kind of moving away from the whole posted concept and moving. If people really liked the Keanu Light, this is a lighter spiritual successor to that I think fits a little better and is a little bit quicker. So GT 2012, great shoe still.
Great. I have one, so I'll just get mine and then you can wrap us up. So this probably shouldn't surprise you, but this shoe, I'm talking about it because it's still available on the company's website for $120, and that is the Nova Blast 3. And so the Nova Blast 3 is still available. I would say that there are enough similarities between the 3 and the 4 that I would go snag a version 3 right now if this is a shoe that you love. There's still, I was looking tonight, and there's still a lot of sizes available on the men's side of things, at least. And so the Nova Blast 3 is a shoe I've loved training in. I have over 200 miles on this pair, and I've gotten a lot of miles on the 4 as well. So this one's still up there, $120. I would say it's totally worth it and worth one checking out. What's your other one?
I have one more. This is really, it's current from what I understand, and it was sent to us recently, but I just was blown away by the fact that this is $100 shoe. And I've seen places where you can actually get this on sale already. But the Merrell Morphlite has blown me away for being $100 shoe. It's honestly got all these great components to it. It's a really good road trail hybrid option. There are lugs that are not so aggressive they cannot handle road. It's a little wider than I was expecting. I haven't run in a Merrell since the original Merrell Trail Glove, which was when I was in college, which is over a decade ago. So I was like, whoa, okay. Great, still slightly wider fit, not nearly as wide as some of those ones, but still good. I did have to really lock the laces down because there is more volume in this, but lots of cushioning, 6mm drop that actually feels a little higher than that. And what was really interesting to me is this actually feels like a mildly posted shoe. It is not. There is a sidewall here, but the arch is a little higher and it just feels really nice for someone that needs a little stability. It's not a stability shoe, but the higher arch really hugs my foot in a way that's not irritating. It makes it feel very stable. So, and for again, foam's great. Rocker's really good. It's a little lighter, so you can pick up the pace a little bit, but just been really impressed by this quote unquote budget shoe about all it can do. So I'm got to say, I got to give this a shout out for something that's affordable. You can still find it on sale for even less than that. For those that want something that can handle a little bit of everything surface wise, really great option.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get companies like Merrell or others that either are new to creating running shoes in general, or are big companies doing other things. We're like, hey, we're also trying to break into the running shoe game. Do you want to check them out? And so Merrell reached out to us, and I know that they've, hiking shoes, and they've been in that realm, at least from like my interactions with them.
Some mild running, like trail running shoes for quite some time, but just not like I don't know how to put this, but there's a certain level of dedication to a running specific shoe that I think they're like, hey, we're trying to do this. Do you want to check them out? And a lot of times when we check those out, a lot of those shoes flop and don't do so great. So it's fun when one kind of works out, especially when it costs $100. Right. It's not easy to find a shoe for $100 anymore. And I'm curious to hear how the foam lasts durability wise for you. I'm super curious, by the way. They have like a trail racing line that I kind of looked at for a little bit. I'm like, nah. Now I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of interested. Now I want to test that.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Great. Well, again, we want to hear what your favorite shoes are from this year and which shoes you think that you are excited about that we've tested and that were made our lists. I thought an interesting observation for myself from this is that if I take out the Cloud Monster Hyper, both of my categories had a shoe from Hoka, a shoe from Saucony, and a shoe from Asics. And I would say it's probably pretty consistent for me over the last couple of years as my preferences go towards those brands in terms of what works with my foot and my mechanics and what I enjoy. So I just thought that was pretty interesting that I fell, and I didn't realize that until we were talking tonight, but I only had those 3 brands that made my list so far for 2024. But
and I, as usual, I'm all over the place. So very, very consistent.
Which is wonderful.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be signing off for this session. This is everything that we got for you all today. We thank you for always joining in with us. If you have it in you to take some time to leave a review of the podcast and subscribe, that does help this podcast grow. Otherwise, we're just glad you're here and hope that you glean. I was going to say gain or glean something from these conversations, and we'll talk to you all next time.